Hello, this is Lisa Wade, and you are listening to Dirt Road Divinity, the scenic route of the soul. And today on episode 9, I am so excited to be talking with Deborah Sudarsky, who is just an amazing person. I'm so excited for this conversation, but also an accomplished author of Embrace Your Psychic Gifts, The Guide to Spiritual Awakening, working on book number 2, all about connecting with your spirit guides. And you yourself have had kind of an interesting spiritual journey.
Exactly. And like, where do we start? But yes, so I grew up in a pretty traditional family. I'm from New England. And so when you grow up in New England, you think about where you're going to go to college and your education. And most often live in a family that is intellectually based or thinking about those kinds of things. And it's all about what you see and not necessarily how you feel or all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so having sort of a spiritual, I just always knew there had to be more to life. Like, it didn't make sense to me that you were born and then you lived a little and then you died. And it was like, I just kept scratching my head, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, there's got to be something more going on. So when I got to college, I had this incredible experience of taking a class called Altered States of Consciousness. And it was so transforming. And also, like, academics were saying, yeah, there's more to life than just what meets the eye. So it was beginning for me of some amazing experiences. And from there, things started to really take off.
Now, did you find with all of that, how great that you just happened into a class in college that kind of shifted your perspective and shifted your future path? Did coming back to the family was, a little bit more academically oriented or traditionally oriented? Were they supportive of this shift, or?
Well, I honestly was very closeted about most of it. I didn't talk about it because I was so worried that I would be kind of shut down, disapproved, made fun of, invalidated. And so I didn't really talk about it with my family. I think at some point I talked a little bit more about it to my mom, but mostly I didn't talk about it. My brother's a neurologist, and so he comes from a very academic point of view. And when I started to do some of the work, which I can share a little bit about that, we had a few conversations, and the medical model and his mind contradicted the spiritual model. And so I have to say, looking back, so many things have changed because of the fact that there were people early on that believed in the spirit. And now there's a concept of the whole spirit, mind, body, emotional connection with health and other things that 30, 40 years ago, when I started doing this work, people didn't really understand that. And so it really did change the way people think about things. So it was not easy in my family, but it also was the launching pad in many ways.
Yeah. And it sounds like now there's an embracing of who you are and what you do, and encouragement. Is that fair?
The thing is, honestly, I think that COVID has been such an incredible time because, and maybe it is me also coming out of the closet a little bit more, but I feel like seeing that you're a psychic and doing this kind of work, even just a year or 2 years ago, people still kind of looked at you, unless they were into that kind of thing. People looked at you sort of like, okay, you're one of those people. And now under COVID, there has been such a huge group of people who are awakening and interested in transformation. And I'm finding that because people are reaching out to me in a very different way. Mm-hmm. And because people are waking up and they're saying, what's happening to me? I've had people call, this is a true story. I had a woman call me who was literally in a parking lot, and tears streaming down her eyes and saying to me, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't actually know how I got here. Meaning, like, how did I get into this life with this, my life partner and my kids and my job, and I'm not connecting to any of that right now. And I'm feeling a greater need to move beyond what's happening. And so that was just one call, but many, many people have called with a similar sort of, things are changing for me. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going on. And I really think COVID has been a really special time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild to look at something that, could easily be construed as just completely awful, negative, terrible, but then also to see some of the silver linings around it. And, just energetically right now on the planet, there is so much higher level energy coming in, and we are feeling it. And for those of us who have been kind of in this game for a while, we're like, oh yeah, okay, let's ride this wave. And for others, man, they can feel kind of swamped by it if they don't have some framework for what's going on. And the framework is so far outside of like traditional thought that it's it's really tough to look at all this and not go, am I batshit crazy? Am I losing my mind?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, as the world has sort of really stopped, I mean, things are sort of opening up and changing now in October, as as we approach October. But initially in February, March, April, when we were like, what the hell's going on here? And people were really in lockdown. Some people celebrated because it's like, oh, thank you. The world's been crazy. I needed some time to regroup and figure things out. And those people have like sort of said, oh, this is an amazing time. And then there are other people that are feeling like a loss of freedom and confusion, and my livelihood is changing, and what does this mean? And it's been terrifying. And so the two are having an opportunity really to connect, because people who are asking for guidance, there are a lot of people that have been waiting, like us. We've been like, we're here. We've been waiting for this time. We knew that there was going to be some kind of big transformation, but we didn't know what it looked like. And then suddenly we're like, oh, I guess it looks like this, because
here it is.
Who could have expected that this would happen?
There's no hallelujah choir. I don't see angels with big wings descending, from the heavens, but transformation is upon us. And the opportunity to grow our own spirituality, our own awareness, our own energy is right here. I mean, it is right here for us to kind of take by the reins. And, I was so excited when I saw that we were talking this week. I'm running this program called Warrior of Light Basic Training. And in that program this week, we're talking about spirit guides and the clairs, so our psychic gifts, and then also those soul gifts that we bring with us or have the opportunity to remember from past lives as well. And this is your playground. I mean, this is the world in which you operate. And so I love the fact that, I get to talk to somebody that the people in my program can also go, oh, other people think this too. So when it comes to psychic gifts, embrace your psychic gifts, that your first book, do we all have psychic gifts? Everyone?
We're going to go back to your program because I want to hear more about it. So what happened for me was that it became very clear that I wanted to write a book. And I started to realize that growing up with a psychic team and feeling so empowered by my own guidance, that it was really important to share, especially with people that live in a traditional family or grow up in a traditional family or have a traditional job, maybe working 9 to 5, and then all of a sudden kind of like having this little intuition that something is happening. And, yes, the answer is everybody does have psychic gifts. And I'm so excited that it's more okay now for people to pursue it. But I think it's kind of a scary thing when you think that you're tapping into something that you have a lot of mystery about. And my intention was to make it a little safe and not so extreme. Like, you don't have to live in a yurt. You don't have to, climb super mountains and meditate for a month. You don't have to live in a monastery. My other thing was, I thought you had to be poor, that you had to be very fringy, that in order to be spiritual, you had to give up all your possessions. And so, yes, everyone has psychic gifts, and it depends on how much you want to pursue it or what you want. But the reality is, I think psychic gifts is another word for intuition. And we all have intuition. We all have a GPS system. And how much of that you want to hone in on is really, you can pace it. You don't have to open the door and let the floodgates happen. You can kind of go at your own speed. You can slow it down if it's too much. But I like to think of psychic gifts really as a way of tapping into your own intuitive powers. And when you do that, you realize that you're not so reliant on the world to find your answers. You don't have to look out there because the world is chaotic right now. And so when you look out there, you can't always find things. But when you come inside, you say, wow, I'm not aligned with that. It doesn't feel right for me. That's a very clear decision maker. Or that feels really good. I feel really joyful when I think about that. That's a sign of yes, keep going that way. And so just even having the simple yeses and nos and having it so clear in your own intuition, I think that's more valuable than anything.
Yeah, I'll be honest that the climate right now, just the public discourse, has been so divisive, and there's so much polarization, and we see, just this battle going on of rising levels of duality and polarity. And there are some folks out there saying certain things and other people saying other things. And I'm sitting here trying to find what do I actually believe, and wrestling with my own cognitive dissonance, recognizing that, there could be some truth there, but if there is truth there, it is counter to everything I thought was real. And what do I do with that? And it feels like a lot of folks are kind of in that situation where they're looking around and going, whoa, what if the things I thought were true aren't? And what does that mean about me that I believed them? And how can I square, maybe the world's different, with how I've always thought. And so kind of trying to figure out how does that feel inside has been a fascinating challenge, because, I am one that'll try to tune in and tap into, does this feel aligned? But when my head and my heart are kind of in two separate places and I'm trying to navigate that, it's been wild. Do you have advice for people who might be facing similar situations?
Yeah, that's such a confusing point. I love that you brought that up, because it is confusing to figure things out. I'm just a huge proponent on meditation. I always have. I've been meditating for over 40 years.
Wow.
And I started when I was in college. I felt like I used to actually go in my closet because I had a roommate, and I would cross my legs and I would do my mantra meditation twice a day. And I found it so transforming. It gave me sort of a platform in myself to hang on to. And there were times when I wasn't doing it as consistently, but I certainly am bringing it back. And when COVID happened, I was going back and doubling up on my meditation time. But I think that when you meditate, first of all, it raises your vibration. It also allows you an opportunity for alignment with the higher energies. And more importantly, it gives you some solid base so that you can actually find how you feel about things. And it doesn't mean that every time you meditate, you're going to have an extraordinary experience. And, like we talked about, like the angels singing, like it's not going to always necessarily be one of those kinds of experiences. But if you incorporate meditation as a practice in your everyday life, I think it really does change things, where you're not so reactive. You have some time to pause. You have a moment to not be locked into your mind. I think everyone thinks that they are their mind, that you are your mind. And that's a huge reality when suddenly you say, oh my God, I'm not my mind. Like my mind goes like in this little circle. And if I can step back from it, I don't have to get caught up in all the whatever's going on in there. Yes. So I do think meditation is a really, really good place to start.
Excellent. You know, we were talking in the group just yesterday about meditation and you know, the difference between finding the path that works for you, even on meditation. You know, some folks, mantra meditation is great, sitting in silence, watching a flame, you know, whatever, guided meditations. When I first started trying to meditate, it was like monkey mind. The minute I sat down, it was like 7,000 directions and the to-do list, and I mean, all the things. And starting out, I found that getting on a treadmill, which would traditionally be really boring, you know, for most people, but there was something about repetitive movement and keeping my body busy, occupied some part of my brain that wanted to bounce around and allowed the rest of my brain to actually connect and like think about directing energy and do mantras, you know, in my head or affirmations. And I got so much information from like my spirit guides while moving my body. And okay, you know, but I always felt like I was doing it wrong because it wasn't how people go sit on a mountain and do it that way. You know?
I love that you just brought this up because I think finding the right route is really important because it certainly looks different for everybody. We're wired differently, we are differently, and really there isn't a right or a wrong. And if you're able to occupy your body in a way that allows your mind to sort of get calm and centered so you can download the information, especially if you're feeling a connection with your spirit guides, that's incredible. I'm so glad you brought that up because it doesn't have to be, for me personally, I do enjoy sitting and having that quiet time. It works for me. But I know so many people that rather take a walk in nature or get on the treadmill or sing a song or paint a painting and feel like that's their moment of meditation. So it's definitely, there are so many different ways. And, you know, that's where it doesn't have to look like other people. You have to find your own path.
Yeah. You know, I've talked to quite a few men, especially who, you know, I live in Oklahoma and in rural Oklahoma. And so the thought of sitting on a mat, you know, cross-legged and oming, you know, isn't necessarily part of popular, you know, culture here. But I've talked to so many men who have mentioned sitting in a deer stand or sitting on a riverbank, you know, or things like that, being where they really feel that connection and where they, you know, it almost like feel their blood pressure drop, feel the, you know, just all the stresses go away. And I think you're exactly right that that's part of, it doesn't have to look the same between two people ever, you know, and finding that thing that works for you that can help calm the mind and reduce the pressure and possibly even connect to the beyond, that matters. That matters, especially in these crazy times.
Also, I mean, the thing about being in the deer stand, and for my husband, it's fishing, and I'm married to a Southerner, so I know all about all those things, but it's also nature. I mean, nature is very restorative. And I feel like since COVID, maybe it's because I've been around so much nature, but I feel like nature is even more valuable now in that it's helping us restore and re-energize. And so I think, especially for people who are uncomfortable with what we're talking about right now, just doing those kinds of things are so really valuable.
Yeah. One of the things you talked about in your book that, you know, we hear the term bantered around, but the idea of being a light worker, what does that mean to you? What is a light worker and what's their role?
I love that word. And when I was writing the book, it became very important to me to include that as a chapter, because I think that oftentimes you feel somewhat alone on your journey, especially if you're having a spiritual awakening or if you're becoming in touch with some psychic energies. You sort of feel like you could be a freak show, and you kind of have, maybe I'm speaking obviously from my own personal experience, but
you're mirroring mine.
You start to feel like, there's something altered. And I think when you become aware of that energy and recognize that you're part of a movement, because we are here creating a new earth. And that is part of the process that's going on here. And we are bringing in light, and we are bringing our energy up. And I actually been talking about this on my social media, which is that the planet Earth is called the planet of sorrows. And one of the reason being is that there is duality here. So you have light and dark and good and evil and love and hate. And that's the earth experience. And we came here specifically for that experience to learn how to integrate the energies. That's one of the valuable things. And I know it's going to sound really wacky, but imagine other star systems watching what's happening on the planet. And I think that there's something to be said. We're here for a reason. So when you begin to identify that you're a light worker, you start to realize that there's a purpose to the psychic gift or the spiritual energy or connecting to the light or the personal evolution that we're going on, feeling. Because as I become more enlightened, as I bring in more light, it means that I'm also elevating those that are around me. And so just one person on a spiritual path is creating all sorts of positivity. So being a light worker means sort of understanding that you're here for a reason, and that one of the reasons that you're here is to uplift humanity. And that makes it a lot more inspiring than thinking, wow, I'm going through a lot of shit and it's not a lot of fun. But when you think, okay, I'm clearing stuff to allow more light, and I'm working through blocks to become more unencumbered, then you start to feel a connection with those that are also doing it. But more importantly, that you feel like there's purpose to what you're doing.
Yeah. Feels like many of us incarnated at this place at this time for a very specific reason. And this craziness of this time is that reason, just in terms of not only experiencing it and witnessing it, but also holding the light through it. And, being, I just see it as being a positive influence on the planet to help her. I mean, I think of Earth as having her own consciousness, but to help her in her ascension process as well. That's a lot of why we're here. And so that's a term that, I don't know how many people are familiar with. So I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. I'm curious if folks, do you have, like, in addition to meditation, if folks wanted to tap in and kind of better understand a primary psychic gift? I think that we have kind of a buffet, of psychic gift options that are available to us if we want to tap in. But for folks who are new to the path and interested in finding one that they really operate strongly with, do you have specific guidance or encouragement for that?
Such a great question. I love that question. I mean, the thing is, some people are more auditory as far as learning. Some people are more visual. Some people are more kinesthetic. Yeah. So I think you find your own, what is your own comfort level. And so you pursue that, and you find that you, sorry, I'm just turning my phone off here. It's going on like crazy. You find what's comfortable. I mean, the whole thing is we kind of think that we have to jump out of our comfort zone to try these new things. But I actually find that the more aligned you are with what feels right for you, then the easier it is to understand what your gifts can be. So for me, one of my things is I channel. And so I love sitting down at the computer. I talk to my guides, and my guides come through, and that works for me. Other people I know hear things in a very different way, and maybe they use the tarot cards, or they use oracle cards, or they get a visual in their third eye center, and so they like to paint or create, or they like working with crystals. So I think initially the most important thing is finding what works for you. What are you drawn to? Are you drawn to crystals? Are you drawn to music? Are you drawn to, follow that? And, connection is really actually the power of intent. And so when you think to yourself that you want to connect in a certain way, that's creating the momentum to make that happen. And intention, thank you. That word just dropped in because it's, I think, probably one of the most important words to be using. When you have that intention, then you can start opening up some of these things. And again, just following the things that you find that you're drawn to and trusting it. It does help to work with people because I think sometimes you need the validation to know that you're on the right path and that what's coming for you makes sense. A question often people ask me in social media is, how do I know whether it's spirit or whether it's my mind? I think that, can be confusing. I think, first of all, if it doesn't feel good, that's a sign that you're not talking to your spirit guides, because your spirit guides are uplifting and they're bringing very positive messages. And if it doesn't feel that way, then something isn't aligned. And I would say that probably isn't coming from your guides. And secondly, when you're working with your spirit guides, ask questions and see if you get any answers. Is there something else I can be doing? Where should I, the more you interact and then you acknowledge, for example, you're going to a bookstore and a book falls off the shelf and it's just what you want. And you say, thank you. And you start to acknowledge those little signs that you're getting from the universe. The more you do that, the more they expand. So just, also just kind of paying attention. Did that answer it? I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Broad.
And the difference between spirit and mind and getting caught up in, am I just making this up? My predominant Claire, the one that I work most closely with right now is claircognizance. And so it's just the idea of just knowing. I mean, you end up knowing things that you don't know why you know it or how you know it, but you just know it. And how do you explain that to anybody else? And, and there was a long time when I thought, I must be losing my mind, or would just keep it quiet or didn't trust it because I thought this must be imagination. And then I realized I'm not that creative. I'm just not. And so learning to trust that, but you're so right about when you're legitimately communicating with spirit guides or, angels, archangels, whatever, whoever's coming to talk with you of the light, that it will feel like unconditional love and support and encouragement, but never bossy, never pushy, never, you must, or you're a terrible person if you don't, or whatever. And recognizing that distinction. At one point my spirit guides were encouraging me to do something, it was just the idea of this would be in alignment with your soul's path. And it was scary to me because it was outside my comfort zone, it was outside the spiritual closet, that I've been hiding in. And I said that, and they said, hey, if you're not up to it this lifetime, that's cool. You can come back and do it next time. No big deal. And I thought, first of all, I was like, whoa, hell no, I'm getting this done, but that to me was such an indication of, we love you. This would be helpful, but if you don't want to do it, you live in a free will zone and you can just come back and try again next time.
That is incredible. One of the things that I find, certainly when I channel, is it's like a feeling of illumination. So when you said I'm not that creative, it made me laugh because sometimes I'm like, I wouldn't have known that otherwise.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known, except, I get this drop-in feeling of like light, and suddenly things just seem brighter. And I think, oh, I see something that makes so much sense. And so I think the word illumination works in terms of feeling when you're in alignment, that you're having this moment where you can see or feel or intuitively know, or like you said, cognitively drop in. And it's like, wow, I wouldn't have figured that one out on my own.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
There's your sign.
I love illumination. One of the other ways I think about it or feel it, because I also feel things a lot in my body, but the difference between expansion and contraction. You know, spirit guides feel like expansion, wah, you know, and anything that's not that, whether it's my mind being a bully or energies I'm picking up on from other people, feels like I want to hunker down and hide, you know, contracting. Which leads me to the question about picking up on energies that aren't our spirit guides and that might be from other people or just negativity in the world. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
And how do we notice the difference?
No, it's such a good thing. It's great you brought it up, because the reality is, and I say this to some of my students, you wouldn't go into a bar and get advice from everybody. Like, you have to be discerning about who you get your information from.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important to ask for the highest light, the highest vibration, and demand that all negativity depart, and asking only the right, ask your guides, ask for some of the archangels that are very protective to keep your energy light and bright. And if you are an empath, and a lot of people are learning to identify when they are, because it means you're sort of more receptive to picking up energies, and maybe you're not as conscious about it. And so I remember when I was living in New York City, I remember hearing from my guides, just even getting in an elevator or getting on the subway, that sometimes you're picking up things. And I was like, what? I'm not even interacting. And they're like, no, you can hear thought forms. And so pay attention when you get home. You need to clear and do the energy grounding work, because otherwise you're carrying stuff around. So it really matter to clear every day, and finding the right way to do it, whether it's burning something like Palo Santo, which I always have around. I just even have it on this desk, which helps sort of burn out any of the discordant energies, or getting into a ritual, even a sea salt bath at the end of the day, things that sort of clear your vibration so that you're not carrying stuff around, which creates that kind of distortion and that heavy energy that you're talking about.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, and the idea that with that too, again, it's finding the clearing method that feels good and aligned for you. And I love the fact that there's so many options, you know, to find that one thing that can work for you.
Is this a good time to ask you to share a little bit what you're doing in your class? Because I'm fascinated. I want to hear what you do.
Yes, it's funny because I was just getting ready to ask you, what does the world most need right now? And you asked me that question. So
perfect. Let's.
I will share, and then if you will share, and thank you for asking reciprocally. I appreciate that. The Warrior of Light basic training program basically came about as kind of divine encouragement. You know, my guide said, "Hey, we need your help on this," and it's the idea of there are so many people awakening right now who don't know what to do with what they're feeling, what they're sensing, what they can now maybe see or hear in a way that's different than how they operated in the past. And providing like a quick basic training for, okay, here's spirituality 101, basically in a nutshell, but especially looking at energy and how to amplify our own energy, but also protect our energy, work with our energy guides, or work with our spirit guides, understand our gifts, with the intention of being able to amplify our own inner light and hold and anchor more spiritual light on the planet. That there are those light workers who are in the battle, you know, who are on the front lines of all the stuff going on in society right now, and grateful, you know, for that effort. And there are others of us who our role really is to intentionally hold and anchor and bring in more and more light onto the planet, to help her, to help us, and to try to create these almost like eyes in the middle of the energetic hurricane that's swirling all around us, to create those little centers of calm so that we can walk around and do the work we need to do in an empowered, coherent way without falling prey to the chaos and the incoherence and the just the storm, the energetic storm that's all around us. So, everything from looking at the chakra system, not just the basic 7 that so many of us know about, but the expanded 12 chakra system that really brings in the 5th dimensional chakras and what that means for pulling in different energies, working with the energy bodies around us, learning how to recognize our light weapons and get to know our light protectors on the other side, things like that, but all in a way that's practical to how can I use these tools and use this information in the world right now to help with this big shift that's happening instead of feeling victim to the big shift that's happening. So it's really about energetic empowerment in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's awesome. Fabulous. I love it.
It's been fun. It's been fun. And, the people in the class, I feel like they're drinking from a fire hose, because there's just so much information. But what I'm really hoping is that they find somewhere, within these weeks, they will find that thing that really resonates with them or that their soul really aligns with and will be interested in diving deeper in any one of those areas. Don't expect people to totally resonate and pick up on and, hey, I want to explore every single thing we talk about, because that's a lot. But if they can find one that will help them feel more empowered, to hold more light, and to step into that light worker role in an even bigger way on the planet, then I think the intention that was set forth for the class will be met. And so we're having fun doing it. Somebody recently described it as like this combination of poetry, prose, and profanity that kind of keeps her engaged and wanting to participate. And I thought, that's it in a nutshell.
There it is. Covers it all.
Yeah, she was like, you can just throw bullshit in a sentence unlike anybody I've ever seen. I thought that's, and I think that's part of it, is keeping it real. I think in this work, there are a lot of folks that it's just the hippies in Sedona who think like this, or just the hippies, new age, woo-woo people elsewhere. I'm sitting literally right now on a farm in rural Oklahoma. I've got donkeys walking outside the windows in front of me, surrounded by trees, dirt road, that's where this whole program came from. But the idea that we can explore the light, we can explore spirituality from wherever we are, including rural Oklahoma, where maybe there's not a whole lot of people that talk like this. But for that handful or more that do, I want to make sure there's community there. And so a lot of the courses is really about kind of creating that community so people can have their awakening experience in a safe community together and grow and learn from each other too. Yeah.
Honestly, the thing about Zoom is that it's all possible.
Yeah. And that's been another benefit too. I mean, I'll be honest, there can be weeks that I don't see another human being except on Zoom if my daughter's not with me that week. And so I'm very grateful, very, very grateful.
Wow. I don't know if you're on TikTok, but there's a whole donkey thing recently.
Really?
And they kind of cuddle up and they get in people's laps, and aww. I'm having a donkey FOMO right now.
There's a baby donkey that was born on the farm, I gotta say like May or June. And he's just gotten to the point where he'll like veer away from mama. And if I walk up to the fence, he'll run over to the fence for pets. And I'm just like, my heart just melts every time that happens, because it's so darn cute. But, and this again, it's going to be one of those things that there'd be people that go, you're batshit crazy. But I was sitting on the porch the other day and the donkeys were out there, and I just sent a thought to little donkey. I wasn't paying any attention to him, but he was off doing something else. And I was like, hey, if you'll come over to the fence, I'll come over and pet you. And I kid you not, no more had I sent that thought his direction than he turned around, walked right over to the fence. And I thought, there could potentially be something here to explore. He got lots of pets. Yeah.
I remember when I was living in Vermont, and I'm so sorry. The allergies are really killing me right now. there was a little shed of baby goats on the property that I was renting. And I really think that a lot of my like intuitive things happened sitting in that little, so those little goats were so cute. And there were like 5 of them. Definitely you develop your telepathy with working with animals.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine how wonderful and sweet that sounds.
Yeah. It was a surprise to me. And that's one thing I love about the willingness to explore our spiritual gifts is it's almost like it's like that onion concept that we can keep peeling back and finding new ones. Because even over the past year, there have been so many things come up that spirit will encourage or say, oh yeah, by the way, you do this. And I'm like, I don't do this. They'll laugh at me and say, come on, you've been doing this for eons. You know how, just get in there and do it, in a very loving, encouraging way, but they just giggle at me. But when we're open, we have an opportunity to keep finding new and different ways to connect, whether it's with people, with spirit, with animals, with the earth. And I think that's one of the beautiful opportunities of being human right now, if we have the open mind and the open heart to want to.
Well, I feel like that has sort of been the class I've been teaching recently, is about reaching out to your spirit guides. Mm-hmm. And it evolves into all these other things that you're talking about. But we do have a tremendous amount of spiritual support. They're totally there for us. We did a class on meeting your archangels, and people got a chance to get a flavor for all the different archangels. And it was so profound because, you sort of read about these archangels, but you don't really think, oh, I can't really have an experience with it. And so understanding that there's so much support, there's so many gifts for us right now. And more than ever, this particular time, like you said, we're all here for this time, but also under COVID, for some reason, the veil is thinner. Mm-hmm. And so it is easier to access all all of our guides, all of this rich material. And so it's a really powerful time to get in touch with all of that and reach in and find out how we can get support in more than one way, especially living alone on a farm in Oklahoma, or living where I am, and you get an opportunity to really find that there is support no matter where you are, what's going on. When you create the intention that you want to learn more, it's there, it's available.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask one more big question, and then I'd love if you'd let people know how to get in touch with you, how to find you. I know you're a TikTok sensation.
I don't know about sensation, but
you have fun. It's fun. Well, first, before I ask the next big question, is there anything else you'd like to share? Just in general.
I think, I asked my guides before we got on what was the most important thing. And I think the message is just that it's a time of transformation. Mm-hmm. And no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what you're facing, whatever the challenges are right now, recognize that they're there for a reason, so that you can move past it and find your light. And it's all available now in ways that it hasn't ever been before. The universe, maybe you would have one lifetime where you'd learn one lesson. And this lifetime, we're having all this ability to transform ourselves. And so it's there. And, the opportunity to get in touch with our inner self and do all that, this is just a really great time. So I think that's my message from the guides, that whatever you're going through, knows that there is another side, that you're getting through it, and just stick with it and ask for support, ask for help, ask for guidance. It'll come in the form of watching a video, or somebody calling you on the phone, or a book falling off the shelf, or reading something on Facebook that triggers something. It's there. There's just tons of information available.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing that. So before we go, I would love to know, like, big picture perspective when it comes to spirituality or purpose on planet or whatever. What do you believe? I mean, if we were to boil it all down, what is it that you believe?
Well, the first universal law is that we are all one.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we're all one, we're interconnected. I believe that I look like this and I have this, and you look like that and you have that. But basically, we're all connected, we're all one person, and that we're all part of this bigger, larger, glorious cosmos, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it higher energies. We're all part of the same thing, and that we're really working ourselves back to that unity. I think that sort of says it best for my thoughts about the universe.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. So if folks would like to reach out, learn more, I know you've got a free copy of your book available on your website. How can folks reach you?
So yeah, on my website, Embrace Your Psychic Gifts, you can fill out an assessment. There's an opportunity with a calendar. If you want to set up some time, we can have a chat and figure out what's going on with you, and then figure out, what you're interested in and what you're interested in pursuing, and whether there's a class available that might be suitable, that you might be interested in, all that. I am on TikTok as Psychic Gifts, where I try and impart a little bit of wisdom from the guides on a daily basis.
Love it.
Recently, people have been very interested in talking about other star systems. So that's a conversation that's sort of new for me to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, email me anyway. My newest venture is really, I've been doing a class about embracing your spirit guides. Mm-hmm. And so that's an 8-week program. I'm really excited about the people that have been showing up for that. I've had some really incredibly gifted, high level, amazing people that missed that one piece of understanding that their guides are with them and wanting to learn more about how to include them and really make their lives, their work a little more expanded, give it that little special juice, and teaching about how to channel. I think that's my new class.
Excellent. Ooh, that'll be fun. Yay. Well, I will include links to your web address in the show notes and in information so people can easily contact you. And, I went and downloaded your book, or had the email, sent to me that included the electronic copy of your book. And I just so enjoyed reading it and seeing so many of the tools that I use mentioned in the books, and learning in the book, but learning new tools as well. And so it was really helpful. I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for your time and for your insights.
Well, thank you. I do want to say that I am in the process of writing, as you know, since we share a wonderful editor who we love. And yes, I am writing a second book about connecting with your spirit guides, because it seems like everybody needs to know how much support and help there is for each of us out there.
I love that. I love that. Maybe if you would be game when the second book is out in the world and available, perhaps you'd come back and we could have another conversation just about that.
It sounds wonderful. It's been so much fun. It's so great. We haven't really had a chance to chat before, so this has been super, super fun.
I've enjoyed it, and I am very grateful to you, your insights, your time, and I look forward to connecting again in the future. And with that, I'm going to say,
thank you for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to give a big thanks to the audience as well, folks who have listened or watched Dirt Road Divinity today. And we look forward to seeing you every Thursday at noon Central Time. You can also find these videos in Dirt Road Divinity with Lisa Wade, which is a separate Facebook group, and also on YouTube. So I'll include the YouTube link so that folks can find all the videos over there. So thank you so much, Deborah, and we will talk with the rest of you next week.